Aeons ago, the Zinthar had been the architects of dazzling cities and mind-bending technologies. Their crystalline structures resonated with life, gleaming like frozen waterfalls under the light of 3 vibrant suns. They thrived in harmony, with their planet's intricate ecosystems, their every movement a symphony of refracted light and musical hums. They were not bound by petty conflicts. Instead, their existence was dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, the refinement of art, and the understanding of the vast, pulsing universe that cradled them. But the universe had other plans. Over the centuries, the first sun grew erratic, sending deadly bursts of radiation that tore through their atmosphere. The second sun faltered, dimmed, and finally extinguished, dragging their once temperate world into an icy twilight. Their greatest catastrophe, however, came not from the heavens, but from within. A runaway chain reaction in their energy conversion matrices caused their planetary cores to crack, triggering supervolcanoes and earthquakes that left their civilization fractured in every sense of the word. The Zinthar fled underground, their bodies, once radiant and unyielding, now dulled and fragile from centuries of environmental collapse. Their numbers fell with every generation, their hope dwindling as quickly as the faint light of their last surviving star. Eventually, their archives told them what they dreaded to confirm: their star would collapse within decades. Their world and everything they had ever built would be destroyed. They had one chance left. For hundreds of cycles, their remaining scientists worked on a project that had only been theoretical before the collapse. They gathered fragments of ancient data, pieced together scraps of knowledge from probes sent into deep space long before their first sun had begun to falter. The probes had identified faint signals from a nearby star system, signals that hinted at intelligent life. This distant species, these humans, were their last hope. The task of creating a message was daunting. The Zinthar language was not spoken in words or written in letters. It was conveyed in harmonic frequencies, rhythmic light patterns, and complex geometric holograms. Translating their essence into something comprehensible by another species was like trying to sing an opera in a single note. But they worked tirelessly, stripping their message to its most fundamental elements: an outline of their existence, the story of their collapse, and an earnest plea for help. As the last echoes of their failing energy reserves dimmed, they carried their transmission device to the surface. The landscape was barely recognizable, once verdant plains, now a wasteland of cracked ice and lifeless crystal formations. The air was thin, their own breaths turning into faint halos of frost around their spindly, crystalline frames. They aligned. The beacon, carefully setting it to emit the pulse in every direction, desperate to reach any listening ear among the stars. With their planet's core steadily cooling, every moment mattered. The Zinthar gathered as one beneath the looming shadow of their dying sun. As the beacon activated, the planet itself seemed to resonate, a faint trembling that sent shimmering waves through the ice-encrusted ground. The transmission sped outward, bearing their entire history, their pain, their hope, all condensed into a beam of light and sound that defied the yawning void of space. Now, all they could do was wait. Would the humans hear them? Would they understand? The Zinthar had no idea if their message would find a willing recipient or if it would dissipate into the endless black unnoticed. Yet in their hearts, if you could call the radiant cores within, them hearts, they carried a fragile hope. They had sent their story into the unknown, and the unknown would decide their fate. When the Zinthar's message finally reached Earth, it was not the ears of diplomats or generals that first caught the strange signal. Instead, it was a modest observatory in the Andes Mountains, staffed by a team of volunteer researchers scanning the cosmos for anomalous radio patterns. The moment the signal appeared on their screens, they knew it was unlike anything they had encountered before. This was not a naturally occurring pulsar's song, nor the random hum of stellar noise. It was structured, deliberate, crafted by intelligence. The signal's complexity stunned Earth's scientific community. At first, the transmission was just a bewildering series of sounds and visual patterns that resisted easy interpretation. Linguists, mathematicians, and computer scientists pored over it, passing out recurring sequences, symmetrical patterns, and what appeared to be bursts of visual light codes. Slowly, a picture emerged. The transmission was not just an SOS. It was a compressed record of an entire civilization's existence across the globe. The news spread like wildfire. Headlines declared first contact and a cry for help from the stars. Public reaction ran the gamut from exhilaration to skepticism, from wonder to fear. Conspiracy theories multiplied as quickly as genuine scientific breakthroughs. But for once, there was a remarkable unity of purpose among the world's leading nations. They agreed to put their collective minds toward a single goal, understanding the message and formulating a response. Weeks turned into months as teams of linguists and engineers worked tirelessly, piecing together the Xinthar's plea. The signal described their dying star, their once prosperous world laid to waste, and their final desperate hope to find sanctuary. The Xinthar hadn't asked for much, just a chance to survive. They had given no ultimatums, made no demands. They had simply reached out, like a drowning swimmer reaching toward a lifeboat. Earth's leaders convened a global summit, bringing together not only politicians and scientists, but also philosophers, ethicists, and cultural representatives. The summit deliberated long and hard, weighing the implications of reaching back across the cosmos. Would the act of responding set a precedent that humanity wasn't ready to uphold? Could Earth truly afford to extend a hand when it had so many problems of its own? Climate crises, resource shortages, and persistent social unrest. In the end, the summit reached a consensus. Humanity's progress had always been about taking bold steps into the unknown. Refusing to answer this plea would go against the very spirit that had driven explorers, dreamers, and innovators for centuries. With cautious optimism, Earth decided to reply. The response was simple, yet heartfelt. It began with an acknowledgement of the Xinthar's bravery in reaching out. The message expressed sympathy for their plight, shared a brief overview of humanity's own trials and triumphs, and made an honest offer. Earth would welcome a Xinthar delegation to discuss how best to assist. While resources were limited and humanity itself was far from perfect, the will to help was genuine. When the message was sent, the world collectively held its breath. Satellites tracked the faint beam as it sped away from Earth, headed for the distant point in space where the Xinthar's beacon had originated. As the weeks passed with no immediate reply, humanity's collective anticipation transformed into reflection. The act of sending the response had been a milestone in its own right, an act of courage, of empathy, and of faith in a brighter future. After months of waiting, the Xinthar's reply finally arrived. Their response, though sparse, resonated with gratitude and cautious hope. The Xinthar emissary had already begun its journey. Guided by the trajectory Earth had provided, it would soon enter the solar system. The countdown to first contact began. As the appointed date approached, a coalition of Earth's space agencies and scientific institutions worked feverishly to prepare. A new orbital platform, designed to function as neutral ground for both species, was completed just in time. Floating above Earth like a tiny shard of glass, the station's design reflected humanity's determination to present their best face. Pristine, functional, and open. When the Xinthar vessel finally arrived, it did so in silence. It wasn't the enormous starship of human science fiction, bristling with weapons and humming with power. Instead, It was a modest, crystalline craft, translucent and glowing faintly, like a drifting shard of ice caught in sunlight. Its slow, deliberate approach hinted at its fragility, yet there was a dignity in the way it glided into Earth's orbit. Humanity's delegation had prepared endlessly for this moment, rehearsing speeches, refining protocols, and training for countless contingencies. But as the Zinthar emissary finally appeared, its form tall and shimmering, a lattice of crystal facets that refracted light into cascading rainbows, all plans faltered. Words prepared in advance felt inadequate. What language could truly capture the gravity of this first meeting? The Zinthar communicated through vibrations, their crystalline bodies resonating like wind chimes struck by a gentle breeze. They projected patterns of light onto the walls, each sequence forming shapes that the human team's interpreters had painstakingly studied. It was not speech as humans understood it, but it was clear. They spoke of their gratitude, their long journey, and their need for refuge. They expressed admiration for humanity's courage to respond and curiosity about Earth's people, its culture, and its resources. In turn, humanity shared its story, how it had ventured into the cosmos, not as conquerors but as learners. They spoke of the challenges that still defined their world, environmental struggles, economic inequality, and the need for global unity, but also of their achievements, their art, their scientific breakthroughs, and their growing understanding of the universe. The meeting stretched on for hours, then days, as both species carefully exchanged information. The Zinthar presented fragments of their ancient knowledge, including hints of technologies far beyond anything humans had yet developed. In return, humanity offered blueprints for habitats and environments that could sustain the Zinthar on Earth's moon, an interim home where they might rebuild and heal. By the end of the first summit, something remarkable had emerged. The Zinthar's once fading hope had been met with humanity's earnest resolve. The two species, though vastly different in form and history, found a shared spirit, a drive to survive, adapt, and reach for something greater than themselves. Though the challenges ahead were still enormous, the meeting ended not in skepticism or fear, but in mutual respect and the first glimmers of a true partnership. Months turned into years as the delicate partnership between humanity and the Zinthar deepened. On the moon's surface, the Zinthar had established their new sanctuary. Under the soft glow of Earthlight, they erected crystalline domes and intricate lattice structures that hummed faintly with energy. Humanity had provided the foundational materials, landers, and life support systems to begin the settlement. And the Zinthar's advanced understanding of harmonic energy manipulation allowed them to refine the habitats to suit their needs. As the Zinthar began to recover their strength, their emissaries quietly studied Earth's technology and resources. They asked for little, offering fragments of their ancient knowledge in return, enough to spark the imagination of Earth's scientists, but not so much as to overwhelm. The Zinthar, for all their fragility, were still cautious, protective of the secrets they had preserved through millennia of hardship. In time, the partnership yielded unexpected breakthroughs. Earth's engineers, inspired by Zinthar techniques, created the first human-compatible energy crystals. These crystalline devices had a remarkable ability to store immense amounts of energy in a stable, portable form. They weren't as powerful as the Zinthar's own energy reservoirs, but they represented a seismic leap forward in Earth's renewable energy capabilities. It was a gift humanity hadn't expected. The Zinthar never framed it as such, never called attention to the significance of their shared knowledge. They simply offered small refinements and suggestions until humanity's scientists saw the connections and made their own discoveries. In doing so, they allowed humanity to claim ownership of the innovation, fostering a sense of mutual respect rather than dependence. Meanwhile, the Zinthar adapted to life on the moon. integrating human technology into their crystalline habitat. Though they still had no desire to colonize Earth's surface, they watched humanity with growing curiosity. They marveled at the sheer diversity of life, the resilience of cultures that had risen from war and disaster, and the unyielding drive of humans to dream bigger, push further, and constantly reinvent themselves. The exchange between the two species became less formal over time. Scientists collaborated on joint projects. Artists from both worlds began to experiment with mixed media, human pigments combined with Zinthar crystalline patterns, human music blended with the harmonic hum of Zinthar resonances. Together, they produced works that neither species could have created alone, the first steps toward a shared culture. But not all challenges were solved. Both species struggled to balance their growing bond with their internal difficulties. Earth still faced climate crises and societal inequities. The Zinthar still mourned the losses of their past and grappled with the uncertainty of their future. Yet the partnership provided something new, a model for hope. In helping each other, both species found ways to confront their own struggles more effectively. In the end, what began as a desperate cry for help became something far greater. The Zinthar didn't just find a refuge, they found a partner. And humanity, in answering the plea of a dying species, discovered within itself a capacity for innovation and unity that had long been dormant. The unspoken gift exchanged between the two worlds wasn't merely knowledge or energy. It was a shared belief in survival through collaboration, in resilience through understanding, and in the boundless potential of two very different civilizations walking the stars together.